So everybody, welcome everybody here. We're going to have 4 areas that we're going to be covering today that I was talking about in the emails that I was sending out. The first area is we're going to go to referral marketing, correct? And the next area we're going to go is it job costing is the next one, Eric, in the slide deck?
Yes.
And the next area is going to be going over the disc and how to sell more losses. And the next area is going to be going over culture will make more profits, correct?
Correct.
Okay, cool. So we're dialed, we're making things happen. And Mr. Sprague, you've got the floor, and I will jump in as least as possible as you like.
No. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. Appreciate that. Sorry about the confusion, if there is any, and my technical inabilities when it comes to slide decks and Zoom. You'd think I'd be better at Zoom by now. I'm on Zoom all day, every day, but all right. Well, the first thing we wanted to talk about was referral marketing, because for a lot of restorers, this is the easiest and in some ways cheapest, at least at the beginning, startup way to go do work, right? Instead of paying pay-per-click and all the things that are super important, but a lot of guys and gals just go out and knock on doors and meet people, right? And Larry and I built our restoration business based on referral marketing. Anybody that's in Howard Partridge's inner circle that's with us, they're very big on referral marketing as well. That's where we learned a lot of the stuff that we did. So I just wanted to start going over some of the things that we can do to become better referral marketers. And I am going to defer to Larry on a lot of this stuff because he did it a lot more than I did with a lot more success. So there's really 2 parts to it though, too. There's Larry's part where he's super personable and really is standing out and getting noticed. But then there's a back end of making sure that we're getting the right amount of stops done and getting the calls done and getting the work right. So we're going to talk about that too. So the first thing is we call it the gift that keeps on giving. As I go out and start finding referral partners, they're going to be giving us restoration jobs over and over and over. And we have to make sure that we're cultivating that relationship consistently. Larry, why don't you tell everybody, if you could, like, what did a day and a week look like for you, referral marketing, and kind of take it back all the way to the beginning when you first started doing it, because some people here may not have done it yet. So kind of give us, in a very linear fashion, step 1, 2, 3, 4, how you started doing that.
Well, the biggest challenge is going into places. I mean, you're pretty much cold calling, and that's not always an easy thing to do. But something that Howard taught us was food is your secret weapon. And I would consider that my shield, because I would just go into office and office and office. Some of them didn't want to see me. Some of them did, but I would always have some type of food. And many of you know I use pineapples an awful lot. But when you bring in food, you're going to get like an extra 30 to 60 seconds of attention that you might not get if they didn't want anybody stopping in. Or they'll give you attention. Oh, thank you. And you'll get a question or 2 in there. And that's what the most effective thing is, because you want to get in there and there's a whole system to it. You have to ask them, introduce yourself. Hey, my name is Larry from Shamrock. Here's a pineapple for you. Who's in charge of dealing with water damage here? You just have to get right to it.
All
and
right.
Then
time out. But I know, but let's back up though. The first thing you have to do is make a relationship with the gatekeeper. Right.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about.
2. Yeah, but you're befriending that person first.
Exactly. And once you make a friend of the person, you just have to be quick and nice about it. You can't dilly-dally. I guess the reason I say that is because there was so many people that I was training over the years. They don't know what to do. They're going to say, but you have to tell them exactly what to say. And Eric and I laughed at these guys at one point. They said, what exactly do you say? And now I realize how pertinent that is. So I'm trying to get the fear out of somebody trying to go into an office and say, hello, how are you doing? Because you bring some food and you say, hello, who do I talk to? And you make a friend with them. And you always ask their name before you leave. There's a lot of nuance to it that we can go over in detail, but that helps you. That's the biggest hurdle, is going in and dropping something off. I mean, of course, you leave a flyer, leave a card, and you ask them their name. But let me back up a minute. Like Eric was saying, you have to organize your day. There's a sheet that I sent out with everybody. and it's got months across the top and it's got lines across the side. And those lines across the side is where you put down the companies that you want to go to. And if you go to company, the first company you go to visit, say it's a plumber shop or an insurance agent or a property manager, you write that name there, you put the date that you're there on that month, and then in the notes on the other side, you put who you saw. And then that's where you stay organized, because you want to go back in 30 days. So if you have a column that has all different dates on it, when the next month comes, you're like, oh, where do I go? And then you know exactly where you're going to be going on those days. That's what helps keep you organized, because I'm on a high eye and Eric's going to be trying to drag me from this way to that way because I'm kind of all over the place. But this was a Chuck Violan system that he gave me, and that kept me organized where I was going. Go ahead.
All right, let me organize this a little bit more. So we need to, as you have, like, let's say you have a restoration business, you hire your first business development rep. The first thing what Larry is trying to say is you have to have a system to create routes. So we would create 4 routes a week for Larry. We didn't market on Mondays door to door. That's when Larry would do his prep. That's when he was doing his follow-up emails, maybe some phone calls. But we found that people were super busy on Mondays, didn't love having us show up, generally speaking. So now we're marketing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of every week. Like Larry said, Chuck Violand had a system called Power Selling, where it basically is just a list of the places that you're going to go on day number 1, day number 2, day number 3, day number 4, with the months and the date that you went. So then Larry would figure out where he's going to go for each of those 4 weeks every month. Then he's out doing those phone calls. Cold calls or warm calls, and also visiting the people that are already using us. I just had this question today, Larry.
Yeah.
I had a
Who
client
do I
of
go
ours
see?
saying, do I continue to go see them once they're giving me work? Well, of course you
Go
do.
see them more often.
You go see them even more, right? Because now all of a sudden there are people, right? So you want to have a system, and you want to go and see people every single month. The consistency is key. Larry might have visited a plumbing shop for 3 years before they gave us work. And they would even say, I don't know why you keep coming here. And Larry just keeps showing up month after month. Hey, hi, how you doing? Here's pineapple. Because one of the days, and this is the big thing in the restoration industry, when you're making those stops consistently, the other restoration company that they use is going to screw up eventually. And you want to be the next choice. And I know that sounds funny, but it happens all the time. And it's going to happen to you. You're going to lose a referral partner at some point because something didn't go just right, because restoration's that way. So we want to be constantly marketing over and over to these people, right? What we're trying to do is create a relationship and hopefully get a lifetime client out of it, that we know, this plumbing company gives us 10 losses a month. This plumbing company gives us 2 losses a month. Then we can start figuring out what the value of each target is and how many we're going to get a month, so that we can kind of plan, right?
Yeah.
So
what?
Yeah.
Go ahead. Continue, Eric. It's okay.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry. And we're running out of time on this a little bit because we're trying to do all 4. But, also we have a whole system on how to get plumbers. Plumbers are the fastest way to money usually in the restoration field. And we used to do these barbecues and all this. I'm actually going to move to the next slide. We talked about the secret weapon real quick. Larry's secret weapon on a day-to-day basis was pineapple, but our company's secret weapon was, we started a barbecue trailer where we would go to plumbing supply houses and put on these huge barbecues. Sometimes we'd have 200 plumbers there in a day, and we're feeding them and giving them, carne asada tacos and this and that. And what we would do is, that was where we were farming. So then we would get cards and we get information. Now, Larry and his business development team are taking those cards and then doing the follow-up month after month to get those people to use us. So that system worked really well. And in another webinar, we could do a whole webinar on barbecues, to be honest.
And that was where we came up with people for the list, because a lot of the questions that I'm hearing about, well, where do I go? You go to the people where you meet. They're going to give you business. You start with the people that are giving you business, and you start with your clients, and then you should have a good list from there. And then you just go, okay, there's a shop I want to do business with there. There's another agent there. There's a State Farm agent over there. There's a farmer's agent there. And then there's a couple property management shops that you met maybe at the barbecue, or maybe you met at the Chamber of Commerce. But if you have a barbecue, you invite everybody to go to these barbecues because you want to introduce the agents to the plumbers, to the property managers. So everybody's doing business. That's where they're going to love you the most if you find a referral source for them. And Eric's giving me the hook because we got to move on to the next topic.
Yeah.
But this is something that's very cool. And for the people that are coming in, there's a lot of people that came in already. We're going to do this because I messed up the time Ray's in here, and Ray sent me a clue earlier that I had the times wrong. So we're going to stay for an extra hour, or I'm going to stay for an extra hour. Eric has an appointment with some other colleagues. So we're going to do this again, and I apologize for the time mess up. And moving on to the next one, Eric, go ahead.
Elizabeth just said that chat is disabled. She texted me. So I don't know how to do the chat. Elizabeth, if you're here, do the Q&A and we can get it that way. So yeah, I'm going to move on from this. We have a video. Larry was always known as the pineapple guy. The point is that he used pineapples on his stops because it was memorable and it stuck out from the competition, right? I had to go see, whoops, there we go. All right. In the Q&A, we'll do it quickly. Does anybody have any referral marketing questions? And I know we could have done 5 hours just on this, but does anybody have any questions? Larry, I can't see that. So, I think maybe I can. No. I cannot see the chat.
I'm chatting with everybody.
You are? Okay.
Well, I'm not getting a response, so that doesn't mean that. Well, if anybody has any questions, put them in. And if this is the first one we've done.
Sorry.
So I apologize. We're going to have another one real soon. Okay.
Well,
go ahead.
Anybody that has our text numbers, you can always text us. I got my phone right here too. So anyway, we're going to move on to job costing because, once we get the work, we have to do the work. But as Larry and I learned early on, it's like, just because you have a lot of work doesn't mean you're actually making any money. Right? If you're inefficient, if you're not bidding properly, if you're doing all these things incorrectly, you're not going to have any profit at the end of the day. So you could have an awful lot of work, excuse me, but not making any money. So job costing does the following things. It manages work efficiency, right? We can start seeing if our team is actually producing work at a rate that we need it done. We know if the estimating is correct. Like if you have a carpet cleaning business, like with your restoration business, it's like a great way to practice, because if you're going out and doing bids that are way too low, no matter how good your carpet cleaners are, they're not going to make their numbers when they start job costing. It's one of the things that we learned as we started to do it. We started learning, like, we need to make these certain percentages. And I'll use Chuck Violand. If anybody in here has been in strategies for success, and I'm assuming restorers, most of us have, cleaning service restorers, Chuck had a formula, 40, 30, 30. And I kind of did that more like 40, 40, 20, right? 40% cost of goods sold, 40% for fixed expenses, 20% for net profit. So we were always shooting for that 40, 40, 20 goal of ending the year with a 20% profit. So the only way that we found that we could do it is we had to start job costing every single job to make sure that we were reaching the benchmarks that we needed to make, right? And that was, allowing us to grade our team members, like, how are they doing? Are they too slow? Do they need some training? Do we need some help? Are the estimators estimating correctly? And it also gave us a known financial position. Ellen Rohr talks about that all the time. You need to know where you are financially. So I have on this sheet a couple different types of job costings, and obviously you can put this in a digital form. These are kind of more old school. Larry,
job costing sheets did go out to everybody.
They did. Okay.
Yes.
So the one on the right, that's from Chuck Violand in Violand Management. So that's not mine, but this is the one that I started with, and I want to give Chuck full credit for this. And then the one on the left is the one that I kind of tweaked for our carpet cleaning department. But basically what we're doing is we're breaking down on every single job, the hourly rate with labor burden, right? So you got to have your payroll tax, your workers' comp, all that is part of that hourly rate. And then we're going to have our equipment and whatever materials and whatever it costs to run the vehicle, right? And I am going to try to pull a 60% gross profit on every single job, right? And that's not in restoration, that's especially like mold jobs, fire jobs, really heavy labor burden. That's not always easy, but that was always our goal, right? So we were doing some version of this on every single job for every single year, right? And then it was posted. So every single person in our company could see it, because that was holding our lead technicians and our project managers accountable, and our estimators accountable for their numbers. And then it was in the public domain, and we would consistently go over those numbers to make sure that our company was staying on pace, right, for profitability. The one on the left was just one that I tweaked a little bit for carpet cleaning. So it's just a tweak on Chuck's. And really, you can see where it says type, square footage, and production. I wanted to figure out, as we got into it deeper, what my production rates were for different types of, like a high-end residential with hot water extraction. What's my average production rate there? Low moisture commercial, what's my production rate there? And then that enabled me, number one, to set expectations for our technicians of how long these jobs should take based on the tracking that we had done. But it also allowed us to, as we're onboarding and training new technicians on the cleaning side, and this could be done for restoration as well, it gave them benchmarks. So let's say a residential cleaning, a really great tech on a high-end home's doing 350 square feet an hour, right? So that's what we're trying to get every lead to be. But if somebody's brand new, I'm going to say, look, we want you in the first 4 months to be able to consistently do 150 square feet an hour, 200 square feet an hour. And then months, 4 through 8, we want you at 275 square feet an hour. And then after that, we expect 350. So it gave them something to shoot for, and that helped us make money, right? So Larry, you want to chime in on the use of these at all in our company? I mean, I know I was the one who was kind of doing this more, but.
Well, it was our team. To get them to do it at the beginning was a little bit of a challenge. But once they saw the numbers and they were competing with each other and they were aware of them and they were prideful of what was going on, and they were sad if it wasn't going smooth. So it was also a cultural aspect too. I mean,
the other thing, you just said competition, but it was friendly competition because we bonused them as a team, not as individuals. So the team had to make the numbers, and then everybody in the team would be getting benefit from that, so that we weren't pitting technicians against each other because we were worried that that would ruin our culture. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's all good.
Our guys used to literally, both mitt and cleaners, they would literally walk in the front door in the morning, not say hello to anybody, and make a beeline to the back to look at the numbers from the jobs they had done the day before. Like, they could not wait to see if they made their numbers or not. Like, that was the culture that we had. And what that did was make Larry and I a lot more profitable, which made selling a business a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, the documentation went a long way.
Any job costing questions? I'm trying to stick to the hour, so I'm trying to give roughly 15 minutes for each topic. Are there any questions at all? I feel bad. There's no chat.
Yeah. So there's really no way. You can just keep on going, and we'll fix this next time.
All right. Well, let's go on to the next thing. Let's talk about using disc to sell. I mean, Larry, are most of the people on here from the inner circle or no?
Yes, there's some. Mostly everybody is. A couple of people. Ray understands it. Kyle doesn't. Steve doesn't. Andrea, I don't know if she's versed in disc, but I know Adam is. So why don't we go along? Go ahead.
Yeah. So Larry and I, through the inner circle and Howard Partridge, we learned disc from Dr. Robert Rome. And then we realized what an amazing tool disc was for running a company, running our relationship with each other, self-awareness. So we started training disc in a morning meeting with our team every Wednesday. Every Wednesday we did disc training. So people would think our business was almost like a cult, because they'd come visit us and all of our employees are talking in disc. But the reason we did that mainly was we wanted them to go out to our clients and use these tools to better serve a client. But that same tool to better serve a client also allows them to sell better, right? So we all know, especially if you're in a larger metro area, a lot of times you show up on a loss and you're not the only restoration company there trying to get that work. I mean, I can't tell you how many times Larry and I have shown up and there's 3 other restoration companies sitting there, right? So now it's a sales job, right? It's that estimator is now a salesperson. So we started using DISC and understanding other people so that we could sell more losses. We got to the point where we were selling pretty much every loss because we understood people. We could read them using the tool of DISC, right? So what is DISC? It's 4 different personality types, and they're all very different. And we all have a little bit of every one of these types in us, but generally we're looking for some clues from the client to what their primary one is, right? So we always ask 2 questions. Larry, what are the 2 questions?
Ace. If you're fast-paced or slow-paced, and then you got the task and the people-oriented. I'm people, Eric's task.
Yeah.
We're
so
both faster paced. Go ahead.
So if we get this is a great example, right? So we're trying to figure out these 2 questions that Larry just said. Are they fast-paced or are they more deliberate, like to move a little slower? Then do they seem to care only about the task, or do they really want to get to know us, right? They're people generated. Well, you're going to sell a loss to a person completely different depending on their personality. So if you came to my house, I'm a high D, fast-paced, task-oriented, very little people orientation. So if that person keeps trying to like empathize with me and tell me how sorry they are, and keeps going to these people-y, huggy-feely things, I don't want to. I'm just going to be like, dude, how long is it going to be to fix this? When are you going to start? And when's it going to be over? Right. Whereas if you took that same thing and went to Larry's house, we're both fast-paced, but Larry's people-oriented, not task-oriented. So if the person is just like, we can start today, we're going to be done in 3 days, and it's going to, be paid by insurance, that doesn't give Larry what he's looking for. He's looking for that person to say, hey, I'm really sorry. Are you okay? Is there anything I can do for you? So our technicians or our first responders had to be able to use DISC to figure out what type of person am I dealing with, and then cater that sales message to the things that that person desires, right? So if we look at this list, Larry, we have a high S. S stands for stability, service, and a couple different words. It says their priorities are giving support, maintaining stability, enjoying collaboration. Okay, so that's one person.
So hang on, let me interrupt while you're going. This is most of the people that you're going to run into. These are most of the people in their house, and most people will go to this place when they're in an extreme circumstance. So you generally, when you're on a loss, slow your pace. Unless you see that somebody wants to go faster, slow your pace. And this is an empathetic square as well. The S is empathetic. So you got to get you and yourself. We all know we have to be empathetic, but now we know specifically that these people are desiring empathy specifically because that's just who they are, not necessarily based on their situation. I think it's 35 to 40% of the population.
Yeah. Now, if I went to the C, which is the yellow right next to it, that person is very data-driven, very rigid, very analytical, not very people-oriented, super task-oriented. And, their priorities are ensuring accuracy, maintaining stability, challenging assumptions, right? They want information. So I can't go and try to sell that loss exactly the same to both of those people. That doesn't appeal to their sensibilities. So I have to get some training and understand how DISC can help me and my team sell more losses. Because, for Larry and I, and I'm sure this is it for a lot of restorers, we're competing against a lot of other restoration companies for the same work. If somebody calls our company and we send somebody, we want to make sure that we have the absolute best chance of selling that loss that we possibly can. So we're going to do a lot of work on DISC training. I mean, I know we have some clients here that use SuperTech University. SuperTech has disc training every Wednesday, one of the reasons is for sales and service. You know, if somebody's coming to serve me, you know, yes, I want them to be polite. Yes, I want them to care about me, but I really want them to tell me when they're going to be finished and how much is it. Whereas somebody else could be totally the opposite of that. Right?
Let me break in here for Eric.
Yeah.
Just a little more data on the C. So we all know those people. Go back a slide, Eric, please.
Sure.
We all know the C. Those are the people that ask you a million questions over and over and over. When they ask you all those questions, they don't mean it personally. That it doesn't mean that they don't believe you or they don't trust you. They don't believe and trust everybody. So when you go to a site, you got to bring some type of data with you. You got to bring a folder that has details about your company. We had a big sales book that was thick that show our insurance.
Hold on.
Oh, Eric's got it there. Our testimonials, details about our company.
We had a brag book that explained everything. We even went so far as there were Xactimate scopes to show that high C person how the billing would go, right? We learned over time by going to all these places that we needed to be able to hand them something, especially while we're out trying to figure out where the water is and what's going to happen. The more information we can give, especially S's and C's who, you know, are going to want more information, we got to give them something. And then obviously, you know, we just had basic marketing flyers that we would give them.
Yeah.
But we would also
ask,
oh, I'm sorry.
I'd ask the client as well, say, listen, we have great reviews. Bring them up on your own phone. If you're not going to trust me, or you wouldn't say that, if you're not going to believe what I'm saying, bring up your phone. And then they'd bring up their phone, they see all great reviews, and they go, oh, okay, you guys are legitimate. That would happen all the time. That was one of our guys, Andy. That was his move. Like, okay, listen, you don't believe me? It's all good. Bring it up on your own phone, how good a job we do. And then all of a sudden, he would close so many jobs that way. And that was specifically with the C's and the S, because they don't always trust. I mean, the S's are more people, but they're very slow paced, and slow paced is not quick to make a decision.
Yeah. Another thing that we used to use, I don't know if I can get this in the camera, is frequently asked questions and should ask questions, because they're freaked out, right? And they're worried they're going to make a mistake and not know what to ask sometimes, especially the S's, right? So we used to provide them the questions and the answers of the things that they should be asking, and in the moment couldn't think to ask. All of those little things, the disc, the brag book, the questions, the reviews on the phone, those are the things that will push a customer to trust you and go ahead and sell the loss. Another thing that we made sure they did was every one of us had all of the claim numbers in our phone preloaded so that we could sit down and call the insurance company.
The insurance company. So we had State Farm, Farmers. We'd have the 1-800 numbers we can call immediately.
Yeah.
And that was always because that would show credibility.
Yeah.
Are you going to go on to the D&I, Eric?
Not really.
Yeah, real quick.
Yeah.
No, hang on. This is important. Now, see, now, and when you go to a job, you have the D. I mean, these are avatars, and that's what always helps me get through things. So your S is your homemaker, Mrs. Jones, that's quiet and doesn't want to rattle the boat. And your C is the one that asks a million questions, Mr. Dita, that's Bill Gates. And your D is your hardcore guy, your Michael Jordan. He's going to tell you how to dry out your house. This is going to be the biggest challenge because many people going to houses with the guy or a woman with a strong personality, you have to go back and tell them that you know what you're doing, and they're going to be testing you. They're going to be bullying you, and you're going to have to go back at them. Once you go back at them and explain what you're doing and show them in the book what's going on, or show them on your phone what you need to do, then it's going to be fine. Then they're going to respect you. It's kind of like a playground a little bit with those guys. It's like Eric that way. So that's my daily MO. But when you have somebody in the house that's a D, you have to go back at them and tell them how things are going to be. You can't let them push you around. Yeah, and then with the I,
bullet points, because they don't pay attention.
Yeah, bullet points. Exactly. They want to know when you're going to finish or when you're going to be there, when you're going to finish, and how much it's going to cost. And if you don't know how much it's going to cost, which generally you don't, you tell them you're billing the insurance company, and boom, they don't care. Move on.
Yeah.
Because they know what the deductible is, and they have it all in the back of their head already.
Yeah. My thing with eyes is they're gonna have a hard time
Geez.
focusing on the details of like the work authorization and all that. So I'm going to try to bullet point that to make it easier to digest, because they're gonna want to kick back to their feelings and how
Hang
far
on, are
is
we
this
on the
gonna
D
be.
or we're on the D or
On
the
the
I?
I, the I.
Oh, now we're moving to a D, an I. Okay, I
We were
wasn't at the
already,
I. I'm with you.
I had already moved to the I. So my
See, I'm the
impatience, I'm
I.
like, let's
You're
go.
way ahead of me. All right.
Yeah.
So anyway, keep going with the I because that's significant here for
Yeah, well,
everybody.
what eyes are very fast paced, and they love people and they love fun. And this isn't fun, right? New loss is not fun. They usually will be pretty optimistic about it. They're not going to be down in the dumps like some of the other people. But at the same time, as you're selling a loss, there's a lot of details. Eyes generally don't like a lot of details. So the hard thing for us isn't going to be getting them to buy, because if we make a personal connection with them, they're probably going to want to use us, right? If we use our disc knowledge. But now all of a sudden we're talking work authorization and Xactimate and insurance carriers and adjusters and all this stuff. And my experience with eyes is that the glazing over of the eyes starts kicking in. So what I learned was just bullet point the most important things.
Tell them about the flow chart that we made up.
I have the flow chart.
Okay.
So one of the things that we used to do, because there's lots of steps to a water damage, and this served two purposes. I actually had made this for our team members. So in busy times when we had to send technicians out to sell losses because we were so busy, all the first responders were taken. I gave them a flow chart, and we would just walk the customer through the entire flow chart of how the loss was going to go and who was paying what and what the timeline they could expect. And by doing this and leaving this with them, that made them feel more comfortable, because how many here have told a customer at 9 o'clock at night when the loss just happened, all this stuff, and then you show up at 8 o'clock the next morning and you're ready to do the work, and they ask you
51st
all the
states.
questions again, because it's like 51st dates, because they were in shock and they couldn't remember anything that you said. So if I sit down and I have a tool for them, and we're happy to send this to anybody that wants it, you can tweak it for
Yeah,
your
I'll put
needs.
that. I can send it out to everybody. That's no big deal.
But if you leave this with them, then that's a reminder for them. And that's also attached to the frequently and should ask questions. Right? We found that very helpful, to be honest.
Yeah, Elizabeth was asking if is there a root policy?
Yes, we can
Tanya was
share.
asking, yeah. So we will get that to you. That's no problem at all. There's extra documents that are going to be very significant.
Okay.
So understanding the client, and then let me go over this. I think we have a minute or two more. You got to send, if you send a guy that's an S, or you get two guys going out to a job, you got to see who's going to connect best with the client on any job. And of course, when you're selling a loss, if one guy's going out there that's a high I and he sees it's a C, he's got to be aware that he's got to slow down. Or if he's got somebody close by in the area and it's a big loss, that's a C, come on over and talk to him. Because I used to call Eric. I'm like, this guy's a D. I'm all over him, but he's just chewing me up and he's spitting me out. Come over and talk to this guy. You're going to connect with him way better.
Yeah.
Because I'd be much better with the I. They'd be talking and talking and talking and talking. That's the client. That's the I. They don't stop talking because they want to talk about their house. They want to talk about everything. They don't want to talk about the work at all. They just want to get to know you. And that's the challenge. So getting the right person to match up with the client to sell the loss is super valuable.
Yeah, well,
and you could try and figure that out on the phone as well.
If you could do it. I mean, it depends on the situation, but Larry, like Larry said, in the situation of a very large loss, you would definitely want to try to get the person there that if the person's hedging and not signing, you would want to try to pull somebody who's going to connect with them, and if possible, get over to that big loss. Because look, you don't want to lose a $75,000 to $100,000 job because the person that went recognizes immediately that they're not going to connect well with that disc profile, right? So we want to get somebody in there that's going to speak that language. Okay. Any questions?
Because if Eric went out to see somebody that was an S and they were sensitive, forget about it. He'd blow it every time.
Ran him over. Not on purpose. I would just get to the point, and that wasn't, good enough. I learned over time, though. This taught me
Yeah.
to do that. Right. So just before we move up to the last one, DISC allows us to cater the message to the client, right? It's not us giving the same message every single time, no matter what. It's us figuring out with those 2 questions, how to identify the client's DISC profile, hopefully, and then trying to cater our sales message to them so that they feel good about it. Larry mentioned pace. It's going at the pace that they like. If the person was a high I or a high D, you're going to have to pick up that pace and get moving. And if the person's a C or an S, we're going to have to slow it down a little bit, right? If we go at the pace that they feel comfortable with, they're going to be more apt to buy from us and let us do that work, right? Empathy versus action. Somebody like me who's a high D, I don't require any empathy, but I want you to like you've been here 5 minutes. How come nobody's tearing up my house yet? Like that's my mentality. Now, somebody who's an S or C or anything like that, that's the last thing they're going to want that person to do. They need to ease into this job, right? So we need to know how much action do they want versus how much empathy do they want. Task versus feelings, bullet points with, bullet points, D's and I's, doing a deep dive on the information, C's and S's, right? Totally different. And then getting them to sign right now. Right. That's the thing. We want to cater the message so that they feel comfortable enough with us to go ahead and sign that work authorization so we can start that job helping them. Any questions or comments, Larry?
Do me a favor. We'll take a minute here. Give me the host for a moment so I can get people that they can ask questions. It'll just take a minute, and I think we can do that. And
If I can figure out how to do it.
yeah, just give me the host back.
Try.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Not allowing me to do that for some reason. Maybe I have to stop sharing real quick. Sorry, guys.
Be just a moment.
All right. You are the host, man.
Okay. I'm just going to allow everybody to talk if they want to speak up. And I've got everybody here. And if you want to ask a question, please speak up. Say something. It's all good. We'll be happy to be helpful. And that's about all I can get everybody. And I could give me 1 second. I can let everybody chat. I think I'm letting everybody chat. I don't know. But I just promoted everybody to chat. So let's hope it's working. Hang on, give me 1 second. Can everyone see my chat? And then we're going to give Eric back the floor. Okay.
All right. No questions?
Let's see. Hang on a second. Yeah, if anybody has any questions, please speak up. So take the host back, Eric. Continue with the show.
All righty. You have to give me the host back. I believe.
Nope, it's just still you, me, and Eric chatting. Well, everybody can speak up if they unmute themselves.
No, Larry, you have to give me the host. I'm sorry, I cannot.
Yeah, I know.
Slide it.
Okay, Eric's got the host back. And we're going to get the show started again, but everybody should be able to speak. Elizabeth, try and speak if you can open up and see if it works. Please.
That part works.
Oh, there you are.
What's up, Elizabeth? Okay, cool.
Hello.
So if anybody has any insight, we will gladly stop. And if Eric doesn't, I'll stop him for everybody.
Well,
Okay.
We'll do this. And if we want to do a Q&A at the end, we can absolutely do that. How's that sound?
That's perfect.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I can go
Thank you,
through this
Elizabeth.
pretty quick and then we can do whatever we need to do. Okay. So last one is building a profitable culture, right? We were already talking about the job costing earlier. That's part of building a profitable culture, right? It's a culture of accountability. That's what we need. And in a lot of service businesses, that's like the missing link for a lot of us. And it was for Larry and I for a long time. We just didn't hold people accountable and didn't have systems and all the things that create chaos. So the first thing about the culture that we learned was you can't buy it. You got to build it, right? So you can't like buy a birthday cake or take everybody to a ball game and just think that you're going to have some great culture. because you celebrated their birthday or you know, took them out one night or whatever. It's a day-to-day thing. I mean, that's SuperTech University was kind of born out of us starting to have a daily meeting because we just recognized that we all needed to connect for a few minutes every day and build a shared culture, you know, much like a sports team in a locker room, you're building a culture of winning together, right? So that's what a company's like. And then I have here, this is an actual picture from one of my coaching clients. And, you know, they had really grown a lot over the last couple of years, restoration company, and started doing morning meetings and started doing, but they still didn't quite have that culture together. So I actually was out there doing an onsite and we put together this was their, they called it the war room, right? So you can see there's a TV screen. So whatever training they're doing, super tech, they're doing REITs, they're doing, you know, inspirational stuff. And then they have accountability boards, whiteboards that you can see all around that, right? So every day they're meeting and talking about winning and talking about what they can do better and tracking data. And now they had a culture of accountability. And that completely changed that business to the point where they tripled in 2 years. And a lot of it was just born out of improving their culture, because in the early days, the culture was not great, right? So what can we do to build it? The first thing we can do is start a daily rhythm, the rhythm of business, where the team comes in, you know, they get their van ready, we have a morning meeting, we, you know, do a little work on ourselves, we connect, and then they head out, right? So those meetings are important, and everybody hates meetings, myself included, because why? Well, we're looking around going, well, there's 20 people here times $30 an hour with labor burden or whatever. And we're doing this mental math that this meeting is costing a lot of money. But what we found was, with improved efficiency, with improved communication, with fewer callbacks, fewer angry clients, those meetings more than paid for themselves, right? So we started that daily rhythm of starting with a meeting. We started explaining the why. A lot of us owners are 20 steps ahead of all the rest of the team. And we just start like dictating, we're going to do this now, or we're going to do this now. And all the team's sitting there going, all right, well, they changed the rules on me again, or, you know, like now they may want me to do this or that. And I was, look, I'm an impatient person. I'm a high D. I'm super guilty of just going. And we started slowing down. And anytime we were going to make a change, we would sit and explain why and let everybody have input and let everybody, you know, air their feelings, right? We created an open forum for people so that we could be better as a team, because you're not going to get buy-in or engagement from people who you're just dictating to all day. They've got to understand why we're making changes or moves. We were looking for every way we could to increase engagement. So did we take them to ball games? Yes. Did we, you know, have birthday cakes? Yes. But we were also doing the little things like Larry showing up at jobs with food and Gatorade. I'm staying at the shop at the end of the day and helping the guys unload vans just so I can give them a high five and maybe just let them vent because they had a hard day or a difficult client, right? We were looking for all these little ways to increase engagement so that they would want to work for us and not go somewhere else for $2 an hour more or whatever it might be, right? We also learned that we had to create a stable environment. Larry talked about S's. That was it, Larry? 35% of the populace is an S?
Yep. Yep.
But when you look at field service technicians, it's probably even higher, because a lot of times your best field service techs are S's and C's, right? Really technical, like to serve, do a good job with client. Well, what does that S and C have in common? They like stability. But a lot of times the owners, they're not stable. We're not stable people. Entrepreneurs are a little crazy, right? So we're running around making changes, doing this, doing that, and that feels unstable to that S or C employee. So we started having to slow down. And if we were going to make a change, we're talking about it for a while and why, and then we would make the change. It would go a lot smoother, right? We wanted to create an environment where they felt stable and secure, that made them feel better about their job. And then purpose, you know, Larry and I were quite a bit older than our team. Most of our team were millennials. Millennials, one of the most important things in a work environment to them is a sense of purpose, that the work that they're doing is meaningful. We didn't understand that at first. We just thought, you do work, we pay you, that should be good enough. It was not good enough. So we started really drilling down on what the purpose of our company was about helping people and making things better. And as soon as we started really drilling into purpose, and you can do that in a mission, values, and purpose for your company or whatever, our team started to really get more engaged, because now they felt that the work that they were doing wasn't just manual grunt work. It was, they were doing work that was helping people in a time of need. That's more compelling to most people. And then, like I said, with the war room here, we had a similar thing in our shop, having accountability on a daily basis, right? Because the more accountable they are, the more stable that feels as well. And then, Larry, can you tell the story about you making your candy bags to go out on a marketing day? Because we had to reevaluate who our best clients were. Why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I was putting together some bags. It was fruit, and it was the pineapples, and I had some candy. So depending on which clients we had, they wanted some candy. So anyway, I was putting it together, and some of our guys were like reaching for it and trying to grab it. And I was like, what are you doing? This isn't for you. This is for our best clients. And they're like, oh, and they put it back, and they were a little offended. They were kind of butthurt. And I thought immediately it hit me. I'm like, oh my gosh, I just blew it with these guys. Is this one guy was a huge S. He was super sensitive. And I was like, oh, this isn't good at all. So I had to go back and apologize to this dude. I gave him a pineapple, take it home. He didn't even want a pineapple. He just wanted to be acknowledged. He wanted to be seen. A lot of these guys just want to be seen. And we realized we needed to, we were doing these barbecue trailer events for all these different people all the time. We needed to do some for them. So we'd bring the barbecue in and we'd have an event with them. And it worked amazingly. They were very grateful for what we were doing.
Well, you came into my office right after that happened and said, I just blew it. And I said, what do you mean? You just said, well, yeah, I said your best clients. And we both kind of at the same time went, our team is our best clients, right? So we need to start marketing to the team, right? Just like we're marketing to the plumbers and the property managers and everybody else, we started marketing to them, right? We, like Larry said, we were pulling up the barbecue trailer that we were doing at plumbing supply houses and started making breakfast. We're making a bigger deal out of birthdays. We did like so many different things to get them to love working there, right? And they rewarded us with a great culture and awesome performance, right? So it's work. That's the point. You got to build it from scratch. And then the last thing is I just want to go through, some of the characteristics of our best clients. And we got like 10 minutes, so I'll open it up after this. You got to look at your team and say, well, who's working with me? How old are they? What do they like? What do they dislike? What does winning look like for them? Right? Do they need more feedback? We learned that monthly reviews were way more popular than yearly reviews because they wanted to know where they stood. Right? Made sense, right? And they wanted a sense of purpose. So I guess what I'm saying to everybody is, and I'm gonna stop the slideshow here, is you got to take a look at your team and then start marketing. I'm using that in air quotes, marketing to them based on their needs and wants, because the more you do that, the more engaged they'll be, the more engaged they are, the better performance they will give you. We learned that the hard way, to be honest, right? And then just real quick, the last couple things for some of the people that haven't been around Larry and I a long time. We just did a couple things, the things we like. Howard Partridge's Inner Circle. We are in the process of starting a restoration membership and group in that. So that will be coming. We're going to actually start a restoration only pod in that group as well. We were just on the phone with Santi. Mastermind, sorry. Yeah. Simon Sinek, Start With Why. If you want to find a good culture book, that's a great place to start. We talked about DISC. Personality Insights is where Larry and I learned DISC through Dr. Rome. I mentioned Super Tech University a couple times. That's a shameless plug for us, but that's daily videos training these soft skills to your team. And then Michael Gerber's E-Myth, because we talked about stability. You cannot have a stable company without systems in place. So E-Myth is a great place to start when you're going to be building systems. So if anybody wants more of this or any information on any of this stuff, just email me, eric@supertechu.com. I'm happy to meet. And then in addition to this, anybody that's come, you guys have given time. We want to give value. If anybody wants to sit down on a 30-minute coaching call, no obligation, no stress, nothing like that, you can just either contact Larry @supertechu.com, or Larry, can you send my calendar thing out to everybody?
Calendar link, yeah.
Yeah,
I
send
can
a
do that. I'll
calendar link.
email it out
I'd be
afterwards.
happy to sit down and help in any way that Larry and I can help. So it doesn't have to be me, it could be Larry as well. So I am going to stop the share, and then we can have any questions or anything from anybody. And then I got to go because I'm doing an inner circle pod here in 5 minutes. So anybody have any questions or comments? Not just questions.
I would love to share something.
Sure.
So this weekend at Coach Hearn's event, Sherry Perry had presented about communicating with your employees with love. And so after you kind of talked about that with the culture, knowing their love language and how they like to receive appreciation and stuff is like, that was kind of eye-opening too, to take that in combination with the disc. I thought that was a really clever way, because some people like gifts, some people like words, so that was really a good way to look at it too.
Yeah, if anybody knows Sherry and Sherry's story, Sherry used to be kind of the anti-loving on your team members, right? And she's very open about that, and she had to really work to build an amazing culture at her company, right? So it doesn't, if you don't have an awesome culture right now, it doesn't mean you can't have an awesome one with a little bit of effort. So Elizabeth, that's awesome. Yeah, find out what they like, what their love language is. It's great.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
So I've got a story about Eric. He would be in the shop or working at the office, and then the guys would come back in the shop later in the day, and he'd go and help them unload the truck and spend about a half hour with them. And you just do that a couple days of the week. It wasn't every single day. It was almost random. So they weren't sure when it was going to happen, and they appreciated when things were going to be, when you were going to be there. And then while you're helping them unload the truck, you're asking them, how was the job? What happened with the job? What was up with Mrs. Jones? I know she was a challenge. The dog bites you in the ass. I mean, we knew certain things happen on every job because Eric and I were in the truck for many years. And that connection with them was super important. And you got to, and then you would ask about their family.
Yep.
Or anything that was pertinent that would make a difference.
And look, for any of us sitting at a desk all day who, don't always love that, I almost kind of liked getting up and going out back. That, like, I kind of did it at first just to get away from my desk. Like, it wasn't intentional that I was going to create this system to engage with them. And I would just go see them as I could hear them coming in. Next thing you know, I'm lugging, garbage out to the trash with them. And then next thing you know, they're telling me they got stuck in traffic for 45 minutes. And then I'm realizing, like, hey, they really appreciate that there's just somebody that's listening to them. Because being a technician is tough work. And most of us have companies where the majority of the team members are techs. It's tough out there. So I think what Larry was saying, what I was doing was just giving them a way to be heard was important.
Yeah. No,
So,
and that would be super important.
Larry, I have to jump off.